Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We've got 5J2115's block completely stripped down now after removing the sleeves in the last video that I put up. And unfortunately, I've got some really bad news for you. Midway through pulling the sleeves on this, in the last video, I noticed from looking inside the water jackets that at some point in time this block has also been frozen and cracked. It absolutely floored me because I know this thing never froze the whole time I owned it. I always have good antifreeze in all my equipment, and this held water and ran and never leaked a drop right up to the day that I parked it to take the starting engine off to use for parts for 5U7066. I literally ran it that day. That was back in 2009, I believe, was the last time I ran this. Drove it to the spot where it was sitting when we took the engine out of it here a month or so ago, and shut it off, drained the fluids, and removed the starting engine, and I had not been back to it since then. So I know this thing never froze when I had it, and it must have been old. It must have happened, like I said, before I had it. At one point in time, my grandfather, right after he first got this, he had problems with coolant getting down in the crankcase. He dumped a bunch of stop leak in this thing back then, and that cured the leak. We just chalked it up. Well, I should say they just chalked it up at the time to leaking O-ring seals on the bottom of the sleeves. But maybe this thing had been lightly frozen and cracked back then, and that stop leak and stuff that he put in sealed it up. I don't know. It just, anyway, I was just absolutely floored when I found the damage inside here, and I never even saw anything on the outside. Well, I think mainly due to this this grease that I'm scraping off right now. I'll get the rest of the way cleaned off. I'll expose some of those cracks a little bit better, and I'll show you what I found. You can have a good look at it for yourself. It's disappointing to say the least. It's frustrating. I really thought this was going to be a good block for me, and this is one I really wanted to use on 1113, considering this was my very first machine. This was what got me into the vintage Caterpillar world, and 1113 is most likely going to be the last D2 that I ever overhaul, I ever rebuild, and I really wanted to have 2115 here. Kind of, you know, it was kind of the beginning of my story, and I kind of wanted to be kind of the end of my D2 restoration experience, but you know, it is what it is. Anyway, I'll get this cleaned the rest of the way up. I'll expose some of that damage, and you can have a look for yourselves. Okay, so now that the block is cleaned up, I think you can see what I noticed from the inside. We have kind of a crack that goes right here, another one that kind of angles down there. We have this vertical one here that makes a turn, heads to the front, and then this horrible one right here. I'm honestly embarrassed that I didn't even see that before. That was underneath about an 1/8 inch of old dried on grease and crud. I could not believe what I was seeing right there after I scraped that out. The second chamber is all right, but you get back by the third jug, that's another bad one. We have a crack here, one there, one that goes that way. A little bit of one again on the bottom, and then it takes a turn up and terminates in this area here. I'll show you what I saw on the inside. We're looking in here inside number 1 cavity. This is actually the crack that I first noticed, this vertical one that runs up along the block gusset. That caught my eye, and it stood out even more when the interior was just a little bit damp right after I'd pulled that first sleeve. And if I can get out of the shadow, hopefully you can see where it even goes and it follows along and heads forward, just like we were looking at out here. When I noticed that, I pretty much just wanted to quit. You have no idea how difficult it was to go ahead and even want to finish that sleeve pulling video. Once I saw that, it's just like I could have just been sick. I was just absolutely shocked at what I was seeing. But actually, I'm more certain now than ever that this block was likely cracked like this the whole time I owned this machine, and I never knew it. I mean, you have that filter tower here with the fuel injection pump, pretty much blocks all that stuff, but I want to show you what I've been seeing here. Now, we know hindsight's always 20/20, but just looking at this block, when I buffed it down with the wire wheel just a minute ago, I really didn't concentrate on these darker areas where it seems like there's no paint. You look at these now that I know where these cracks are, you can see it's pretty dark, like no paint around this one, and kind of like a wide vertical weep mark. Also the same for like the center bulge right here where it kind of ran down. This one's really telling, where you have this distinct vertical line, and then you have this kind of stain with no paint here. Again, from the large cracks in this other bulge, and then straight down from that. That is very consistent with damaged and seeping blocks that I've seen on other machines where they are ran for an extended period of time with a continuous coolant seep coming down. It pretty much takes the paint off of the block, and those look like some vertical run marks to me. Like that was something that spent a few hours in operation before she got sealed up. And here's the second part that makes me think that this is pretty old damage. We're at the front of the block around that number 1 sleeve cavity where that large vertical heave is. If we go inside, we'll go to the inside surface of the block, just inboard of that, and you can see kind of this darker area right here. And I'll try to zoom in on it for you a little bit better. You can see where all of this buildup is right in this area here. And the funny thing is, it's rather soft. It comes off, and it's not rust scale. To me, that looks like old dried stop leak. Since stop leak is basically a liquid compound that solidifies when it comes in contact with air, and all that stuff, sorry about the glare, is directly inboard of that large crack. That pretty much tells me that that sucker was sealed up with some kind of mechanic in a can. That's what kept that series of cracks from leaking in there. I'm sure of it. And the final observation that I made that in my mind bolsters my stop leak theory is that abnormally reddish stuff down there. I even have kind of a piece of it up here. Let's see if I can get some of that off of there. Yep. See, that's not the typical, this is like the typical brown sediment rust buildup. That stuff that's a lot redder to me is not something that is matching its surroundings. It's rather atypical. To me, that is consistent with old stop leak residue. So in my mind, the whole stop leak theory definitely holds water. No pun intended. So unfortunately, that's what I've found with 2115's block. It's not what I wanted to see at all. I'm just, like I said earlier, I'm frustrated. I'm profoundly disappointed. I really wanted to use that one, but guys, I know I'm going to get some pushback for this, but honestly, for as far as 2115 goes, I'm calling it. That block's junk. I'm not going to do anything with it. That does not mean I'm giving up on the 1113 project. That D2 is going to run again. But it's not going to run with 2115's block. And I've already made in the thousands of dollars investment in new parts and new old stock parts to build a good running D3400 engine with, and that is not a good foundation to do that with. I wouldn't be comfortable with that, with making that kind of investment into a piece that's been that badly compromised at any point in time. And I have enough experience with showing YouTube bad Caterpillar D2 engine blocks to know that by now there are going to be people in the comment section lining up in droves prepared to spend whatever amount of my money it takes at machine shops trying to fix old and broken castings. And guys, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going that route. It's a decision I made. If we want to break it down a little bit, we'll have to go back into the dark, cobwebbed recesses of my mind. And it gave birth to the Squatch 253 engine block repair decision-making flow chart. Very simple to follow. We always start in column 1, reference it with column 2, back and forth, yes, no, as required. So we start with, is the engine block cracked? The answer is yes. Takes us to column 2. I really don't like repaired blocks, which loops us right back to column 1. That brings us to, can it be repaired? Well, if the answer is yes, only if there is no other option. So that brings us back to column 1. Do I currently own another option? The answer was yes, but 3J2219 ended up being bad, as well as 5J2115, and that brings us once again back to column 1. Final question, are there still other good blocks left in existence? That answer is most definitely yes, so sweet, try another one. But If that answer would have been no, and this means that there is absolutely no other option, it leads us to the last ditch scenario, basically acceptance. Okay, fine then. I'll see about getting it repaired, but I still don't like it, and I probably won't be able to sleep tonight because I really don't like repaired blocks. And I'm stubborn. So that brings us to where we are right now. Still don't have a good engine block for 1113, and man, I thought of all the options I had here, something would have been good. I really didn't dream that everything would have been bad, but basically at a standstill once again with that. But there's a lot of other work I can do on that. I got a lot of starting engine stuff to do. I plan on making some videos about the carburetors and the magnetos for those, as well as rebuilding the starting engine. I got that whole rear end out there, the 1113 chassis that I can get into, assess steering clutches. We had some sticking problems there, make sure the undercarriage and everything is all right, get into the transmission. The clutch assembly needs a lot of help. So guys, I'll find a good engine block here one of these days. Like I said, 1113 will live on. So, you know, all kidding aside, you know, like I said, it is disappointing, but it is what it is. You know, these things don't always go as planned, and you know, it's real. It's better than scripted reality TV, because this stuff is actually happening, unfortunately. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Hope to catch you back again.